Storytime with Andy and Amanda. Right, Amanda, what are we doing today?
It's story time with Andy and Amanda and the special guests coming up.
Oh, spoilers. 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 You can hear the gentleman laughing in the background there. So that's why. So, yes, of course, obviously, this is story time with Andy and Amanda. Or is it story time with Amanda and Andy? I can never remember. This is the fourth episode, and people may have noticed on the second episode we had the tremendous Rich Davenport with us. And keeping up our pattern of a guest every other episode, we've got another gentleman with us today. And this is a dear friend of mine and Amanda's now. Dear friend, would you like to introduce yourself to us first of all?
Well, it's not often I get referred to as a dear friend or even a friend of anyone. So
I can call you Git if you want to.
I'm truly flattered. Yeah, it's Steve Mingle here. Lovely to be on. Thanks so much for inviting me. I apologise for being marginally distracted because the tennis is still going on over in Australia. It started about 5.5 hours ago. So I am trying to keep a little eye on the screen, but I will give you my close to undivided attention. I'm really looking forward to it.
Right, Brett. It's always great to see you, Steve. Now, as is story time, we always have our guests go first. So, would you like to humble us with some kind of piece to start us off with today?
Okie dokie. Well, I'm just going to start with a poem, which is one that I wrote at the end of lockdown. Pretty much when we were allowed back on the streets of Manchester, and those streets became very dangerous places to go. On account of this army of kamikaze cyclists. So this one is called Deliveroo Bastard. When the streets were deserted, they had the run of the town, but now they're crowded again, they just mow people down. They all claim to provide an invaluable service, but just the sight of their bikes doesn't half make you nervous. This army of reckless, irresponsible jerks speed through gaps in the traffic just like Eddie Merckx. Now we're all in the grip of a new reign of terror, where just crossing the road could be a terminal error. Even the great Bradley Wiggins never went any faster than the average Mancunian Deliveroo bastard. If you dare take a trip to the northern quarter, you'll set yourself up as a lamb to the slaughter, as he ploughs through the hordes of al fresco drinkers with the peripheral vision of a horse wearing blinkers. With his insulated box full of local cuisine, he's a one-man pedestrian intimidation machine. What's all the rush, mate? You hear passers-by say. They'll have to stick the whole lot in the oven anyway. But Indian or Chinese, burgers or pasta, it all travels at speed with Deliveroo Bastard. No need to wear helmets, they're indestructible, and the bicycle repair costs are tax deductible. With these guys, you need eyes in the back of your head. To them, a no entry sign means go straight ahead. They shoot through the lights like they're red-green colourblind. Can't imagine you'll see them on Mastermind. Berate them, abuse them, you're wasting your breath. Take one step off the curb and you're dicing with death. Just a stroll to your local will end in disaster if you get in the way of Deliveroo Bastard. Now, where's that bastard got to with me pizza? There you go.
Tremendous. Brilliant, Steve. I always think of that one then. Have you ever been down to Cambridge before, have you? Or God, Oxford more, actually, really.
Yeah, I've been to Oxford more recently. Yeah, a couple of years back. Yeah,
same
Cycle Central, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy down there. Have you ever been to Oxford or Cambridge, Amanda?
No.
Because I always remember it last time. I used to have a friend who used to live in Oxford, and every time I went down to see her and husband and the children, they always used to moan at me like they're or the cyclists that either ran down or hit in the past week or so around there. It's just plain crazy. It's a lovely city, but it's mental. So, but I don't see that was tremendous, mate. So, what made you write that piece originally then?
Well, it literally was being back in the centre of Manchester, and I guess people during lockdown had so much used Deliveroo and their like. So suddenly, when you were out and about in the town, it was quite a different kind of landscape. And you really genuinely, especially where I am in the northern quarter, you really have to duck and dive sometimes to get out of their way because they simply do not obey the normal rules. So I have to admit, whenever I see one, even if he's just standing around or rambling, I do go bastard, just as a matter of course now. Which
I
may
think you
get me
should
into.
contact Deliveroo and see if they're using for the marketing campaign.
Oh, they should get you filming an advert up for doing that piece from Steve. I'm sure they'd like you. Right. Anyway, right, we'll move on now. Okay, right. We're going to do our joint piece now. A couple of years ago, Steve, I think you saw this at Word Central, if my memory is correct.
Remember you. Is it? Yeah, I remember you doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we did for the record of it. We did a piece called "Run Away with Me" in 7 words, and what that was, Steve, it was Amanda, go on. I'm not hogging up all the microphones.
A series of 7-word poems that followed on from each other, and we took it in turns to write them.
Tell everybody, Amanda, where you because you started this off, where it came from originally.
Yeah, I was trying to write a 6-word poem on Instagram, and I could only get it down to 7 words. And then I sent it to Andy and said, "Oh, I've wrote this 7-word poem." And as a joke, he carried it on, and we just kept writing it back and forth. And thought, "Oh, I'm going to put this in a book now."
Now,
wow!
A couple of years later, we've now done the sequel to it, and this has got the cunning title of not "Run Away with Me" with 7 words. Run Away with Me again in 8 words.
Yeah.
So
I knew you were going to go one way or the other. It was going to be 6 or 8.
We tried 6, I seem to recall, and again, we failed completely.
No, we really can't say much in 6 words.
So on this one, we have to be honest here. This one, Steve, it took us ages to write this on because we had a couple of false starts on it. Because you find when you're doing pieces, sometimes when you're conscious, you know what this is going to get published. Yes, this is. We had to be a bit more careful. The first one was just a gag, really, which I took the mickey out of Amanda a lot. And this is what's happened now. It took us, 18 months, Amanda, this is it, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it took a couple of times because we couldn't get it right. So you've got the premiere today, Steve. Premiere.
It's a privilege. Come on, bring it on.
Bring it all like that. Right, okay. Amanda, do you want to give the title again?
It's Run Away with Me again in 8 words.
If we could again, you know I would.
But at times, our thoughts get locked down.
Do you remember that time before it changed?
Only as if recalling a half-forgotten dream.
Do you remember the house across the woods?
And the ghostly figure standing at the window.
You said you saw holding hands for eternity.
Before fading, leaving behind a cloud of dust.
If we could again, would you again?
Back to the place where it all began.
Do you remember the way the world was?
I was always waiting. You were chasing time.
I was racing waves. You were waiting patiently.
Holding my breath underwater, swimming with mermaids.
Constantly crafting new beginnings while revisiting your past.
Creating a life raft to weather the storm.
Would you walk back for that door again?
Knowing it led to where we are now.
What would you say? What would you think?
If you had to do it all again.
How would you start? What would you do?
Would you take my hand and just run?
Would you look at me and say yes?
I would. So let's run away together. Again.
Dun, dun, dun.
Wow. That was just fabulous. I think that extra word makes a lot of difference.
It made a lot harder. It made a lot harder.
Really superb.
Cheers, Steve. It means like it's one way to really think about it and it was the first one where we were sending them backwards and forward each other to WhatsApp, almost like a daily basis, Amanda, weren't we? The first one.
Yeah.
But how did this second one go for you, Amanda? Then? Do you find it a lot harder?
I think it definitely took longer. And we won't really go. I wasn't going that many places. You were only going to work when you were back in the office.
Yeah.
And I think there was less inspiration to write anything as well.
Yeah, so it's mostly wrote over lockdown, really was. I think we started it at the beginning of lockdown, really, so it took us a while. So, no, I'm very happy with it.
Well,
so,
I thought it flowed really, really beautifully, and I completely understand why it took so long to write because of course you're restricting yourself so much. It's so constraining. It's much more difficult to say less than it is to just sort of flow with a natural piece, isn't it? When you've got that constraint. So it actually flowed. It sounded really natural. It wasn't like you were kind of forcing the words together to get within the 8 words limit. It was kind of like much more like a natural conversation. I really loved it.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Much appreciate that. You were our test audience, so it means what you like it, mate. But anyway, mate, that's our first round done. So we do a joint piece. So it's straight back to you now, maybe a second piece.
Oh, blimey, O'Reilly. Okay. Well, but when you kindly invited me onto this, you suggested that I might like to do a Valentine's piece. Which is not my normal genre, but I've had a go at just writing a short story. There's no way I would have had the time to piece together a poem. So I put together a nice little romantic piece, which is called If Music Be the Food of Love. It was Henry and Stella's first Valentine's Day. They'd only met a few weeks earlier, and Stella had hinted that she'd quite like to be taken to a fancy restaurant for the evening. Henry bristled at the idea. Why pay 60 quid for a menu that would usually cost 20? But he reluctantly agreed. The evening was everything he dreaded. Every table set up for a couple, decorated with a single red rose, fawning waiters, dimmed lighting, and sickly romantic music being piped through the sound system. He'd already concluded that Stella was good for one thing only, and once he'd had his fill, he'd move on to his next Tinder victim. Their evening's interaction consisted mainly of Stella's wittering prattle and Henry's polite nods and feigned interest. You're talking a lot, but you're not saying anything, he thought to himself, wishing indeed that he could be listening to talking heads instead of the stream of slushy drivel assaulting his earbuds. Increasingly irritated by Stella's banal conversation, he glanced around the room to see other couples gazing lovingly into their mobile phones, evidently just as bored as he was. Suddenly, Henry recognized the opening bars of the next piece of pap on the playlist. It was the childishly simple introduction to the insufferable Ed Sheeran's The Shape of You. Stella cooed, "Ooh, I love this one." Every man has his limits. Henry's eyeballs bulged as he clenched his steak knife ever tighter, his knuckles turning white as snow. Letting out a blood-curdling scream, he leapt to his feet and plunged the blade deep into Stella's neck. As Henry retracted the knife and a torrent of blood gushed out, he lurched across to the next table, violently thrusting the weapon into the chest of a startled woman who he'd seen tapping her fingers to the beat of this heinous crime against music. Now in a frenzy, he careered around the room, attacking every woman within reach, until the knife became trapped in his final victim's ribcage. By now, terrified shrieks had given way to a petrified silence, allowing Sheeran's pathetic simpering voice to become audible once again, just as he got to the bit where he says, "I'm in love with your body, oh I, oh I, oh I." Naturally overcome by a new surge of violent fury, Henry lifted a large marble lamp from the counter and brought it crashing down towards the head of the nearest diner. The man suffered only a glancing blow and, still conscious, looked up pleadingly at his attacker. "Please, hit me again, I can still hear him." At the ensuing trial, the judge sentenced the restaurant proprietors to 20 years for incitement to murder, adding that if they'd have played Galway Girl instead, he would have sent them down for life without parole. Henry was acquitted of all charges, the overwhelming mitigating circumstances leading the jury to conclude that any reasonable man would have acted in a similar manner. Meanwhile, Ed Sheeran remains at large. If you're thinking of going out for Valentine's Day, then perhaps you should think again.
Amanda, I'm going to let you answer this. To have some comments on that.
I'm scared.
Oh, do you know what got me about that scene? When the body count started rising, I was thinking Amanda's pieces, and you were definitely channeling Amanda, and definitely with that.
I have to say that was definitely influenced by listening to some of your flash fiction, Amanda.
Yeah,
The last
the
year
key
or so.
rule is everybody dies.
Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant, that one, mate. Oh, I didn't realise you disliked Ed Sheeran that much, poor guy.
Well, doesn't everybody?
Yeah, I do. I can't stand him. I was thinking for a minute you're going to start going to go with James Blunt then, particularly after that recent Spotify problems going on. He's threatened to release a new album.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm not too fond of him either. But then, you know, I do have a very finicky taste in music, so that's not surprising. Mainstream doesn't tend to do it for me. I suspect you may well be the same.
Oh yeah, completely. It's the stuff I make Amanda go through. She just looks at me sometimes thinking, "What have I married?"
Yeah, there's some very strange stuff that you listen to.
But anyway, mate. Okay, over to Amanda then. I know she's doing a good piece for us now, aren't you, Amanda?
Okay, so I'm going back into the past now, into my book, Love, Dates and Other Nightmares, that I wrote mostly before I met Andy. And most of them represent a bad date that I went on with a different person. This one's just more about the experience of online dating, and it's called Online Dating. He added me to his favourites list. He clicked yes on Meet Me, but this form of dating drives me round the twist. He said I've more pictures if you want to see. So I give him the benefit of the doubt. No, I didn't want to see that. He said turn off caps lock, but I meant to shout, maybe I should just get a cat.
Excellent, Amanda. Oh, tremendous, that one. Oh, now obviously people wouldn't. That's your first book, Amanda, from a few years ago, that as well, wasn't it? So
yeah, it's a long time. I hope my writing's changed a lot since then.
No, that's still your punch, I think, definitely. And I was the way Steve was laughing there. You were the same, mate, weren't you?
Absolutely. No, that was definitely you. I hope you haven't changed that much at all. So, how many books have you had published since then?
I've got a full-length poetry book published since then, and a couple of short chat books. Some of them were with Andy, and some were on my own.
Right. Oh, cool.
Oh, that's great for me. Great for you. Because think, Steve, obviously now we're on Valentine's Day when this is getting released. Obviously, recorded just before, but doing that sort of piece as you've done is perfect for that time of year. You're both in digs at romance, aren't you? So it kind of made sense. I was going to do a piece from the book I'm working at the moment about a couple having an affair, which is a very serious piece, actually. But I'm changing my mind now. I'm going to do something else. I'm going to do a bit of flash fiction now as well. Now, I don't know whether you've heard this one, Steve. Amanda definitely has. This is called End of the Night. We met towards the end of an early Christmas party after my brother booked our taxi, and you knocked on the front door apologising to Melissa for being so late. It's okay, I smiled. The sort of thing I would do. As Pete, my brother, looks at me in surprise, almost like he knew her. I wasn't sure about coming along, she carried on. I wasn't sure if you'd be carrying on so late, but I just needed somebody to talk to. I didn't know what she was talking about as I watched her carry on chatting to Melissa, and neither did Pete. Rick, the taxi's due in 5 minutes, he called out from the living room. I shook my head. Give me 5 more minutes. Of course, 5 turned to 10. I ended up staying up until 4 a.m., then ended up walking her back to her house half a mile away. You don't have to do this, she said as she arrived at her front door. That's true. I could have other motives, I laughed. Good, because I certainly do, she kissed me. Her husband arrived back from his shift 4 hours early at 11 a.m. I bet the bus driver still has nightmares about me getting on the bus in just my underpants to this very day. You
told that with such conviction. I'm struggling to believe it really isn't.
It was an ex-friend of mine, Rick, that did that stunt, right? That's all I'm going to say.
Somebody you know quite well.
Yeah, not me, right? Don't speak to the guy anymore, so I can tell the tale now, right? So I'll get away.
Not a member of the spoken word community, then.
No. If I don't know anyone in the spoken word community would do something like that. That I'm admitting to, anyway, right? What do you think, Amanda? Now?
No comment.
That's all I'm going to say. No comment. I'll move on to it. Right, Steve, it's back to you again now, mate. Would you believe?
Oh, blimey. Okay. Right. I'm probably going to drag this one out of semi-retirement over the next month or so, somewhere or other. It's almost nostalgic, actually. I would have written it pretty much exactly a year ago. When we were in the absolute misery of that long lockdown, the winter lockdown, where we couldn't go out at all and people couldn't come into our houses and the pubs were all shut and the shops were all shut, and it was just every day was Groundhog Day, and there's a sort of sense of increasing desperation, or at least there was in our house. So I wrote this to try and convey the repetitiveness of life in lockdown, and also that feeling of desperation, really, so much wanting to get out but not being able to do anything. And it's called Relentless. Peering through the window pane at gloomy skies and pouring rain, my holiday plans are down the drain. What I'd give to get onto a plane, or even on a bloody train. But the powers that be have made it plain, from travelling we must abstain. So indoors we must all remain, living life in the very slow lane. This incarceration's inhumane, life's so relentlessly mundane. We're not allowed to entertain, so we watch the telly yet again, where with utterances so inane, ministers pile on the pain. Creatives treated with disdain. What's your problem? Just retrain. Next election, you'll be slain. Those experts exercise your brain with their educational campaign. We watch in fear as they explain how the virus lives on cellophane. From their evidence, they ascertain the infection rate's now on the wane, but can't eradicate it, just contain, and pray that vaccines break this chain. This sacrifice mustn't be in vain, can't face this cycle yet again. So though it goes against the grain and causes grievous mental strain, from fun and frolics we must refrain. It's really pointless to complain. So much to lose, so little to gain. So let's try to keep each other sane until the day they finally deign to let us out, to drink champagne, or a French red from some posh domain, or a double vodka from Ukraine, or a Prosecco, or a Guinness, or a pint of real ale, or a gin and tonic, or a trendy cocktail, or a San Miguel, or a Peroni, or a Coors Light, or a cheap and nasty buy 2 glasses, get the rest of the bottle free, house white, or a paint strip of brandy, or a half a shandy, or a bottle of sickly sweet artificially flavoured cider with more E numbers than you can shake a stick at, or a pint of warm gassy beer in a plastic glass. Anything really, anything at all. Please just let us out.
Yes, I can well relate to that one, Steve. Definitely with that. Amanda, can you relate to that as well?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, completely with that one. Definitely, yeah. I know. Like so many people were going crazy, weren't they, at the end of that lockdown last year?
They're horrible times, and it's you know, obviously we've still got an element of restriction about what we can do at the moment, but compared with that, when there really was nothing and every day literally was the same, it was kind of hard to keep yourself on the straight and narrow, wasn't it?
Oh, blimey, yeah, I know. It's like, it's bizarre because it was soon we went to lockdown last year and that. So I know so many people who put weight on, or I lost about 3/4 of a stone. And Amanda?
I found it. I'm keeping it safe for him. He can have it back anytime he wants.
That's what it seemed the way it went, honestly. Like, it was just absolutely surreal times. And I think it's like, I don't know what you've encountered of Steve in this one. Well, I know so many people, as Amanda does, have stopped writing altogether. I haven't come back to it. Have you found the same with you?
No, I get that. When lockdown started, I thought, right, okay, I'll write another book. I'll write football books, as I think I've told you before. Yeah. And I thought, well, this is going to be, these are going to be the ideal circumstances. You know, I can't do anything else, even if I wanted to. But I just couldn't get the mindset right. And I wrote, you know, I probably got about 20,000 words down. But I sort of read it back, and it just had no flow. It was just rubbish. So I discarded it and left it. And instead, through pretty well all the lockdown, I just did average of maybe 1 spoken word piece a month, something like that I managed to put together, and that was about it, which is pretty low productivity rate. Really. But you know, it was funny because of the circumstances. It was almost perverse, the sense that you've got so much time on your hands. Surely you can be super creative, and yet, you know, it affected my mindset, and I'm sure an awful lot of people much worse than it did me, and made me far less productive than I am normally when I've got loads of other things to do.
It's crazy. Like it was like when I got sent home last year, 2020 actually. I think about it, because I'm diabetic. I think me and Amanda, we wrote based our based our lockdown book. We did a lockdown book called The Lockdown Was All We Could See. And Amanda, tell people obviously what happened to you in that point in 2020.
Yeah, I was just writing a lot of lockdown stuff, and that was basically it, because that was the only thing I was inspired to write, because there was nothing else happening. Yeah, but she's just gone and bought out a book, she had, Steve, at the time, Amanda, and you, Goes to Me. Oh, yeah. I'd spent about 4 months like promoting that, and it came out around the time the lockdown started. So I'd had like pre-sales of it, and then I just had nothing then.
Yeah, strange times indeed. So, well, no, the whole thing is, We look forward, not backwards, my philosophy, don't we? So that was a great
That's
piece,
right.
that, Steve. I got the paranoia straight away with that one, did then straight away. So very you, mate. So okay, Amanda, your second solo piece, then, please.
Right. So this represents a person who I won't name, even if I could remember his name. And it's from the Love Dates and Other Nightmares book. It's called Too Upset. We only went on one date, and you think that I'm great. You said I'm attractive, but you're being proactive, and you hope that I'm not too upset. You seem to think you're a catch, every woman's perfect match, desired and needed by all. When you don't call, you hope they don't get too upset. Really, you're just an overgrown child, and your hair is badly styled. You think you look like Iron Man, but you look like you climbed out of a trash can. So don't worry, I won't be too upset.
Excellent, Amanda. I'm trying to. I did as well. You can see where a humour came from, even back then, Steve, can't you? Really, with that?
So that was well pre-Andy, was it?
Yeah, it was some guy, and I was being nice, offering to meet again, but I wasn't really that interested. I just thought, well, he's not done anything to offend me, and he sent me a message back going, "Oh, I'm not really that interested in you," and give me a load of compliments. I said, I don't think we should see each other again. I hope you won't be too upset."
And you were thinking, get
out. Oh, brilliant. Okay, I've got to follow that now, unfortunately. So, right, okay, I'm going to guess we get decent light in it. Okay, now, as I was telling Amanda knows last time, I did a piece from Edward Lear from the Complete Nonsense book. And I know Steve's obviously either read Edward Lear, or I know you're a bit of a fan of him, aren't you? So this is one of his, and I'm trying to read this, the light's a bit dark in here. So this is one called, I've not tried properly going through this yet, but I'm just going to go for it. This is the Jumblies. So, the Jumblies. They went to sea in a sieve, they did. In a sieve they went to sea, in spite of all their friends could say. On a winter's morn on a stormy day, in a sieve they went to sea. And when the sieve turned round and round, and everybody cried, "Your orb is round," they all called out loud, "Our sieves ain't big, but we don't care a button, we don't care a fig. In a sieve we'll go to sea, far and few are the lands where the Jumblies leave. Their heads are green and their heavens are blue, and they all went to sea in a sieve." They sailed in a sieve they did, in a sieve they sailed so fast, with only a beautiful pea green veil, tied with a red ribbon by way of a sail, to a small tobacco pipe mast, and everybody said, who saw them go, "Oh, won't they soon be upset, you know? For the sky is dark and the voyage is long, and happen what may is extremely wrong. In a sieve to sail so fast, far and few are the lands where the Jumblies live. Their heads are green and their hands are blue, and they went to sea in a sieve. The water soon it came in, it did. The water soon it came in. So to keep them dry, they wrapped their feet in a pinky paper all folded neat, and fastened it down with a pin when they passed a night in crockery jar, and each of them said, "How wise are we? Though the sky be dark and the voyage be long, yet we can never think we are rash or wrong. While round in our sieve we spin, far and few are the lands where the Jubilees leave. Their heads are green and their hands are blue, and they went to sea in the sieve. And all night long they sailed away, and when the sun went down they whistled and warbled a moony song to echoing sound of a coppery gong in the shade of the mountains brown. Oh, Timbaloo, how happy we are when we live in a sieve in a crockery jar, and all night long in the moonlight pale we sail away with a pea green sail in the shade of the moon's brown. Far and few between are the lands where the Jubilees leave. Their hands are green and their hands are blue, and they went to sea in the sieve. They sailed to the western sea, they did, to a land all covered in trees, and they all bought an owl and a useful cart, and a pound of rice and a cranberry tart, and a hive of silvery bees, and they bought a piggins and green jackdaws, and a lovely monkey with lollipop paws, and 40 bottles of ring boo rah, and no end of Stilton cheese. Far and few are the lands where the Jubilees leave. The hands are green and the hands are blue. They went to sea in a sieve. And in 20 years, they all came back, in 20 years or more. And everybody said how tall they've grown. For they've been to the lakes of the terrible zone and the hills of the Chankly Bore, and they drank to their health and gave them a feast of dumplings made of beautiful yeast. And everybody said, if we only live, we too will go to sea in a sieve, to the hands of the Chankly bore, far and few, on the lands where the Jubilees leave. The hands are green and the hands are blue, and they went to sea in a sieve. That was pretty hard to read, that one.
Yeah.
That's great.
It's like always a believer sometimes. You've got to try reading pieces out like it's not in your usual style. So that was hard.
Yeah.
Definitely with that one. So, right. Okay, then. We're off to the big finale now. Over to Mr. Mingle to finish out.
Okay, well, this is an old one, but it's pertinent to this time of year, I think, especially in a post-lockdown environment. And you alluded to it earlier with the putting on weight issue, which so many of us have experienced, despite our best efforts. So this is a piece really about the futility of dieting, and it's called "No Chips." No chips, I'm on a diet. It really works. You ought to try it. I've now survived for 15 days without a trace of mayonnaise. I used to get me 5 a day from a bottle of Chardonnay. Now it's organic runner beans, broccoli and clementines. Once I thought that nothing beats a deep pan pepperoni pizza, but now for dinner I love to eat a chicken salad with 2 Rivita. No chips, I'm on a diet. Grill it, steam it, just don't fry it. Eating stuff that's cooked in lard will only make your arteries hard. Don't tuck into that pork pie, you prat. It's full of saturated fat. Resist that cutting greasy batter. It's simply mind over matter. Just a chunk of Stilton or Red Leicester will raise your level of bad cholesterol. And if that kebab slides down your throat, you'll end up like Mr. Creosote. No chips, I'm on a diet. Haven't you cynics all gone quiet? It's worth coping with a little hunger to make yourself look 10 years younger. I've got me GP off me back and slashed me risk of heart attack by carefully watching what I eat. Now I can almost see me feet. No chips, I'm on a diet. It's getting tough, I can't deny it. It's hard to keep that willpower strong when you're bloody ravenous all day long. 6 weeks of eating things I hate, and I've still not reached my target weight. It gets tougher day by day to resist that Chinese takeaway, and surely it can't really hurt if I sneak in the odd dessert. Treacle tart, spotted dick, lashings of custard nice and thick. Last night in bed, I fantasized about Mr. Kipling's apple pies. More chips, sod the diet. Happiness, you just can't buy it. What's the point of being thin if you're as miserable as sin? Me wife's now living down the smoke. She left me for some chubby bloke. Me calorie-controlled obsession had plunged her into deep depression. So if you're feeling slightly lardy and you'd rather be more Laurel than Hardy, although your doc might not endorse it, just squeeze yourself into a corset.
Amanda,
that's it from me.
I'm going to let you comment on that.
Yeah, I'm going to try and be good and not having a chip still.
Well,
you haven't convinced me.
well, unfortunately, Amanda had pepperoni pizza for lunch. She did so.
Oh no!
It's okay if it's for a meal, though.
Yeah.
Oh, brilliant!
Yeah, I loved your piece about going to the gym the other night, Amanda. It was great.
Amanda,
that is so relatable.
Have you got that piece of hand? We'll do it as a bonus piece.
No, but I'm going to read it as speakeasy anyway because I've not read it there.
Yeah, that's it. And people obviously that's called the Seagulls of the what was it called?
Seagulls of the Gym.
Yes, yeah. We'll persuade you to read that one next month, Steve. So don't worry about that. So, but anyway, guys and girls, try Steve. Go on, mate. Apologies.
No, not at all. No, that's great. I look forward to that. Yeah, you're wrapping up, aren't you, Andy? I can sense it.
Yeah. But anyway, listen, I want to thank Amanda as always, and I want to say a big thank you to Steve as well for attending today as well. It's been a pleasure, mate, having you on as always, mate. So, if people want to find out more about you, Steve, where are the best going?
Gold. Yes. Well, I do have. Yeah, I have a little used YouTube channel in which I've got very primitive videos of quite a few of my poems, which is called Garden Shed Poetry. And although I absolutely detest social media, I've kind of been forced to have an Instagram account, although I seldom post on it, just to keep up to date with what's going on, really. And you can find me there on Vlad the Inhaler 57. And that's about it, really.
Yeah, well, it's enough sleep, as I always say sometimes, definitely, mate. So, been a pleasure, mate. So, we should look forward to seeing you at Speakeasy next week on Open Mic Night in Chorlton. But of course,
thanks so
this
much.
podcast is coming out after that, so we would have seen you by then, mate, anyway.
Time travel.
A pleasure,
a bit
mate.
of time travel, absolutely. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks so much for inviting me on. It's been great fun. And look forward to seeing you at Speakeasy and beyond.
Indeed so, mate. Right, guys and girls, that's it for today then. See you all next
Cheers, then.
Take care, guys. Bye. Storytime with Andy and Amanda.